Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Let's start with a little history. The Anglophone conflict began in late 2016 when La République du Cameroon's government's colonial security forces used lethal force to put down peaceful marches by lawyers and teachers protesting against perceived marginalization by the country's majority francophone government. In response, more than 30 armed separatist groups formed to fight restoration of the statehood of the British Southern Cameroons, an independent nation called Ambazonia. A self-declared interim government of Ambazonia also emerged and is run largely by Ambazonians living in Europe and the United States, leading the peoples of Ambazonia all the way to freedom and total independence at Boya. La République du Cameroon's coronation may not have, but neither has the firepower in the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, more of which you'll see in the full briefings of tonight's Undaunted, which we'll get into, but only after the prime headlines.
The prime headlines for today. We'll start with the story of success Ngongo extensive to Ferdinand Ngongo. Now, this is the conclusive end, and I'm sure that you do not want to miss it. Also today, we'll give you the story of how La République du Cameroon Senate President Niyat Njefenji been covering Senate Vice President Chief Tabe Tando. What is he covering him on? We'll find out in the news today. Also today, bad times for La République du Cameroon Elections Management Body in Ambazonia. Another innocent Ambazonian dies from the bullet of La République du Cameroon terrorist military. Also today, we're going to be looking at human rights group as they call on Ambazonians to resist abuse of their rights to cell phones by La République du Cameroon terrorist military. Colonial La République du Cameroon occupier military invade Boye County, the land of no return once again, and of course, you know what the result will be. And reports are investigating two incidents of anti-Semitism in the North London Derby. All right, the news in detail.
Immediately influences society. They inform people about what is. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia deprived of such privileges. the privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Amazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Amazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do these people of Amazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Amazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Amazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news on stories.
Most importantly, media work by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way around.
And like it says, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You would just away, visit our website at www.abcambertv.com. The steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome, Amba.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
Yesterday, we brought to you a very extensive reaction of success in Gogo's to Ferdinand Ngongo, who is an enemy of dialogue and keeps saying we can't dialogue with terrorists. Due to how extensive success Ngogo's reaction was, we thought to continue with the full detail in today's show. Now, Ngongo's crime syndicate leader, Success, says he uses Mr. I.M. Monge, Minister Paul Atanganji, Minister Felix Mbanyu, Colonel Emile Joel Bankui, Governor Ifai Yango Francis, the governors of the 10 regions, some ambassadors, high commissioners, and consuls, many senior divisional officers, some divisional officers, military and gendarmerie bosses, and some mayors, traditional rulers, and a number of government and non-government militias to carry out his in the Cameroons. Now, the sole purpose of all Ferdinand Ngongo's numerous crime is to gather enough money, get enough support so as to use its financial and human resources to destabilize Cameroon in order to seize power from President Paul Biya by all means, either through a military coup, a medical coup, or at worst, a constitutional coup. As you follow me carefully, you will understand how Mr. Ngongo has intentionally and systematically positioned himself over the past 11 years in order to seize power from Mr. Biya. And I make bold to announce that 99% of all the unrest in the Cameroon for the past 11 years are the products of Mr. Ngongo. Now, this includes, but are not limited to, the current crisis in the southern Cameroon, the microbees of Douala, and other agitations within the Republic. Now, fellow Ambazonians, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Onyi Balance. Dasmat is here. How are you doing, sir?
Okay, Onyi. Good evening, Onyi. Good evening, fellow Ambazonian. Well, now Success in Congo goes on to enlist 16 crimes of Mr. Ngongo, stating that, like everyone, to pay close attention to this fact that he says are all verifiable. Ngongo has the power to destroy Cameroon laws and single-handedly arrest any judge, he says at the instigation and instruction of Ngongo, a sitting deputy attorney general of the Supreme Court, in the person of Justice Ayapo Abene, was arrested without any warrant or arrest and without any warrant of arrest and without constitutional due process. At the same, Ngongo refused to appear before the judges of the Special Criminal Court on the 18th of October 2022, as indicated in the summon, and thereafter Ferdinand Ngongo resisted arrest that came with a warrant from the Minister of Justice, and in a phone conversation with Minister Lauren Esso, Ngongo threatened him that he can instruct the gendarmes to arrest the Minister of Justice of Cameroon. So it's safe to say it's either Ferdinand Ngongo is above the law, or he is the law of Cameroon, or he's bigger than Cameroon itself. Interesting. Well, Success Ngongo goes on to say, it is important to note that Ferdinand Ngongo was summoned physically on October 18, 2022 by investigators to be interviewed in the context of COVID-Gate, a scandal flooding several cases of misappropriation of public funds and overcharging documents by a report of the Chamber of Auditors. The Chamber of Auditors audited the management of the money and on 10th March 2021 sent a progress report to the Finance Minister. The document denounced numerous dysfunctions, including the artificial monopoly granted to the company called Mediline Medical Cameroon SA, belonging to businessman and partner in crime of Ferdinand Ngongo in the person of Mohamed Dabo, who delivered screening tests for 24.5 billion CFA. In detail, this company invoiced the state for 1,400,000 at 17,500 francs CFA each, while the unit cost charged by the manufacturer SD Biosensor was 7,084 francs CFA each, a difference of more than 10,000 francs CFA per test, resulting in a loss of more than 14 billion francs CFA for the state. And all this money went into the pocket of Ferdinand Ngongo. Unfortunately, on the 18th December 2022, Ferdinand Ngongo killed Mr. Mohamed Dabo in order to wipe out all evidence against him, he says.
Reading on, another high success, Ngongo. He says Ngongo has the power to decide the lifespan of millions of Cameroonians. Now, two, he says the referral hospitals inaugurated by the Prime Minister in Ebolowa, Bafam, and Garoua are all organized camp of Mr. Ferdinand Ngongo. Now, the medical doctors of the Garoua referral hospital and other inaugurated hospitals are complaining that all the materials and equipment that were brought and presented as new ones are actually old equipment that were just painted and presented as new ones, many of which are not working. Now, anything that concerns money, Ngongo is in charge, and he calls it their taste force. He makes sure all the hospital projects are approved by President Paul Biya, inaugurated by Dr. Dion Ngote, while he makes the money, then causes the population to throw the blame on the president and prime minister. So the prime minister and the president are being deceived by Ferdinand Ngongo. Now, Ngongo claims that those referral hospitals can handle patients from Chad, Gabon, Nigeria, and many neighboring countries without any need for Cameroonians to go for treatment in India, USA, or Europe. Yet, Ngongo still sends his wife and children to be treated in Israel because he knows all the so-called referral hospital that he built through his crime syndicate are not what he tells Cameroonians that they are. All right. Success also says in the auditor's investigation, it was noted that over 10 referral hospitals have been built and completed around Cameroon on papers, yet only 5 do exist on the ground. Now, this thing called task force at the presidency is meant for Ferdinand Ngongo to make money. That's why there is no single project carried out by the so-called task force. Now, co-coordinated by Ngongo and his henchmen, I am Monge, that has been successful. All of them have problems, but all these benefits Ngongo's pockets because the prices are skyrocketed by him for his personal gains. Success goes on to say that this is bad news for the Cameroonian public, but good for pockets of Ferdinand Ngongo. Ngongo told the president that a referral hospital has been built in Boya, but you and I know that though land was bought for that purpose, but no such thing exists in Boya, yet on paper it does. When the Prime Minister goes and inaugurates one referral hospital in Bafusen and later on goes and inaugurates another in Garwa, Ngongo uses that to give a false impression to the president that all the remaining 8 referral hospitals inaugurated with time.
Well, on another highlight on Ngongo from Success in Congo, Ngongo's new oil business is the military option he recommends for the crisis. The third point here is for a country like ours, which is already heavily indebted, yet the military, under the instruction of Ngongo, is set to spend in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon alone over 1 billion francs CFA every month, without counting money for special mission or special operations. And for the past year since this crisis started, the military option alone has spent over 680 billion francs CFA. Unfortunately, the military option introduced by Ngongo has not produced any reasonable results. He says instead, the military option for repression, annihilation, infliction, oppression, subjugation, and aggression has caused more destruction of lives and properties to our beloved nation, Cameroon. All this at the instigation and instruction of Mr. Ferdinand Ngongo, who remains the main benefactor and beneficiary of the crisis in the Anglophone region of Cameroon. This explains why CPDM alone is reaping all the proceeds of the crisis while every other political party is victim of the crisis, because a CPDM official in the name of Ngongo is the initiator of the crisis, as earlier explained in my previous episode. He says that is why he is positioning CPDM members in all strategic opportunities like reconstruction, House of Chiefs, Regional Assembly, Conciliator, DDR, bilingualism commissions, etc.
All right, Success Ngongo says Ngongo plans to ensure the 3 arms of government are in his pockets. He says for some time ago, Ngongo tried to remove the Speaker of the National Assembly to replace him with his own loyalist, and that is why we saw the Right Honorable Kavaye Yugio Jibril return with drips on his hands, because he was informed that if he does not come from his medical trip, Ferdinand Ngongo will influence the legislators to replace him. Now, this is because Ferdinand Ngongo wants to change the constitution of Cameroon to make himself the constitutional son of President Biya. Now, unfortunately to him, the Right Honorable Kavaye Yugio Jibril has hinted on time, and Honorable Joshua Osi of SDF and a host of others in the opposition party were not in agreement of this evil move by Ferdinand Ngongo. Also, President Paul Biya wants this war to end. That is why he appointed a diplomat like Chief Dr. Joseph Ngute to use diplomacy and end this crisis, because Paul Biya knows that the military option is not working as his Secretary General had predicted, and that is costing Cameroon much. Now, how would you continue fighting a war when you are bleeding the coffers of your country? This is why the war entrepreneurs are fighting the peace ambassadors, because if the war ends today, all the financial gains they are making through this crisis will stop. Now, this is what Success Ngongo says.
Now, he says Ngongo and his gangs can go to any land to destroy any initiative that is towards peace. They destroy the late Cardinal Tumi's initiative of All Anglophone Conference, the AAC. They infiltrated and destroyed the Grand National Dialogue that was meant to be inclusive and sincere. They destroyed the Ghana Peace Conference. They destroyed the Anglophone Youth Conference that was meant to be in Dubai. They destroyed the President's initiative, which the President himself instructed a general in the army that I had, this is Success Ngongo speaking, never met or spoken with to have me gather 300 fighters in ground 1. They destroyed the initiative led by the Director of Civil Cabinet Adam through the Cameroon Council of Calabar and me. This is Success in Congo, where we gathered over 181 fighters in 2021 after the consul, Mr. Patrice Onana, and myself spent over 8 million francs CFA of our own money, and now they are trying to destroy the ongoing Canada dialogue that is endorsed by the UN, UK, US, and many other nations of the world. This is because the war in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon is a business to them, and they can just kill anyone who wants to put an end to their business enterprise.
Now, according to Success Ngongo, he goes on to say, and I quote, "I personally wrote to the President of Cameroon in March 2022 to explain how Ferdinand Ngongo is using the war to make money, and that if Ngongo is not stopped, the crisis will never end. And exactly 3 weeks after the president received my letter, I started receiving blackmails from Nkongo's faceless political cricket and his two ex-combatant proteges of the DDR Boya. Now, and up until date, they are determined to assassinate my image or even assassinate me just because I made a report to President Biya against their source of income. Now, they also use Barrister Emmanuel Nsalai of USA to lie to the president and to the Cameroonians that they are arresting Ambazonians in the USA, and that recent arrest of Ambazonians in the USA is as a result of Nsalai's complaints to the FBI. Now, this is a fatal lie from the hellfire, and I had long debunked this lie, which they previously used to dupe Cameroon's government of plenty millions of CFA. The American embassy in Yaoundé is the complainant of this case against the Ambazonian kidnappers that were arrested in the USA and not the Cameroonian government. January 2020, Mr. Felix Mbayi collected 220 million CFA from Cameroon's coffers using his name that he has come to meet me so we can repatriate refugees to Cameroon. Now, Success Ngogo goes on to say,
well, he says, unfortunately to him, he has never met him, and neither has he ever been in contact with him. Yet it's on record at the Unity Palace that his Success participated in collecting hundreds of millions to bring back refugees who never came to Cameroon. Mbayo only came to Nigeria to meet his girlfriend by name Samira, who was the consul of Cameroon's High Commission in Abuja, who died recently on the 25th of December 2022. All the money they steal from Cameroon is shared between Ngongo, Atanga Nji, Mbayu, and a few others. Another partner in crime of Ngongo is Governor Fa Yengo Francis of DDR Cameroon. He says a man who hails from Iba Oku, who lives in Emana, Yaoundé, was the O of Mentrim Division in 1986 during the Lake Nyos disaster. All the gifts given to the victims and survivors of the Lake Nyos disaster by the authorities were swindled by Mr. Fa Yengo Francis to his family house to be shared to his family members. He has always been an opportunist. His village people says anyone who doesn't support him, he makes them his greatest enemy, and even his village people have to bribe him huge amounts of money before he can help them to get a job. The road in and out of his village is blocked by Amazonian fighters, and no one goes out and no one goes in. He is the main supporter of General Rambo in his village, yet he is the coordinator of DDR Cameroon. The ex-combatant in DDR, Boya, almost got him beaten the other day. He ran for his dear life and will never return to Boya again. President Paul Biya says that if a combatant lay down his weapon or stop fighting and repent, he should be allowed to leave, whether or not he goes to DDR. But Faye and Ngongo have turned the DDR to another lucrative business. This is why they insist that anyone who doesn't go to the DDR has not surrendered.
All right. Reading on, he says the official DDR report says that over 2,000 ex-Boko Haram fighters are in Mora DDR center in the far north. 315 ex-Ambazonian fighters are at the Bamenda DDR center, and 305 ex-Ambazonian fighters at the Boyer DDR center. He says, yet my finding shows that not up to 1,000 fighters are in Mura, not up to 150 ex-Ambazonian fighters are in Boya DDR center, and not up to 200 ex-Ambazonian fighters are in DDR Bamenda. Yet, Yengo Francis, together with Ferdinand Ngongo, are deceiving Cameroonians and the president with fake figures, and the money gotten through this scam is shared between Ferdinand Ngongo and Mr. Faye Yengo. Now he goes on to say that Success Ngongo says, I challenge investigators, journalists, civil society, and international organizations and diplomats to do their independent investigations or visit these centers by themselves unannounced. You will be shocked to realize that DDR is another scam organized by Ferdinand Ngongo with Faye Yengo as the main contractor. Also, they said that the annual budget of DDR Cameroon is 3,500,000,000 CFA. Now, if you divide or share these amounts by the fake total number of inmates in the 3 DDR centers, which is 2,620 ex-combatant in total, it will give you a total of 1,305,500 francs CFA per ex-combatant for 1 year. Now, this amount is enough to settle each of the current ex-combatant economic is a business. Mr. Fai and Ngongo would rather have them stay at the various DDR centers so they can continue using them to make money, more money to release them to be financially independent. If they decide out of this money to pay these children every month, each of them would have nothing less than 111,000 francs CFA monthly. Yet, the maximum amount each of them consume per month is 30,000 francs CFA, and they are not integrated, which is the main cause of their continuous agitations. Fai Yengo and Ferdinand Ngongo are heartless according to Success Nkongo. Note, Fai Yengo runs the DDR as a private family enterprise together with his family and friends like his younger brother Paul Yengo in DDR Bamenda and his girlfriend Reina Fabo, who is his private secretary, and she shouts at DDR officials as if she has a presidential degree. That's what Success Nkongo says.
Now, it is therefore safe to conclude, in Success Nkongo's words, that corruption is in the DNA of Mr. Fai Yengo Francis Ngongo Mbayu Atanga NG and members of their crime syndicate. And as long as the war continues, they all continue to smile to the bank. Ngongo deceived the president in 2017 that if Sisiku Ayuk, Julius Tabe, and co. are arrested in Nigeria, the crisis would end automatically. This mission alone costed 178 million to have them kidnapped, kept, and extradited to Cameroon, yet it is 5 years since they were abducted and the crisis hasn't even ended. Now, the 6-point Success Nkongo makes, he says the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has asked the government of Cameroon to make it clear how much they spend in security matters, especially in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. But Ngongo does not want it done because he knows if it's done, the international community will compel Cameroon to stop the war because it's bleeding the country in all ramifications. Success Nkongo point, Cameroon has in her civil service over 70,000 ghost workers who have been receiving salaries, and a huge percentage of this money go back to Ngongo's pocket. And in August of 2022, last year, the Minister of Defense, Joseph Betty Asomo, dismissed nearly 1,000 trainees undergoing training at a military academy for tendering fake certificates. These were people that Ngongo was preparing to support his plans to seize power, and that is why none of them were arrested, though they presented fake certificates. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has also requested for the government to carry out an audit of the civil service and the military because lots of money goes into fictitious accounts as salaries every month. Yet Ngongo wouldn't let this audit take place because he is guilty of gross financial crimes which are linked to ghost workers, and this is one of the causes of poverty and unemployment in the country of Cameroon.
All right, he goes on to say the 8th, the Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé, the Omnis Douala and the Douala Yaoundé Highway projects are other criminal sources of Ferdinand Ngongo's income. These are big mafias organized by the task force at the presidency, headed by Ferdinand Ngongo. Now, Ngongo gives contracts to his partners in crime who are not experts at a very low cost, which he still takes commission from it, then skyrockets the price at the level of the presidency. And when the job is delayed, he officially cancels the contract and relaunches it with another contractor, still to make huge billions. That is why the above-mentioned projects have over 10 years now without any meaningful progress. He would later accuse ghost contractors. This is another smooth way for Ngongo to steal government money. The 9th, Ngongo and his direct deputy, Mr. Elung Paul Che, are not in talking terms because Ngongo insists that Mr. Elung should not talk to the president without his authorization. And then one day, the president called Mr. Elung, after which Ngongo became furious to the point where Ngongo is doing everything humanly possible to destroy Elung by saying that Mr. Elung is from Mankon in Northwest region and not from Kupe Mwananguba division. He forgot that his very Mbayu, who claims to be from Northwest region, is another appointed as an Anglophone from Mazam, whereas he is a Bamileke from West Region because his mother and father are Bamilekes from West Region. He only went to school in Bamenda and used his connection in Yaoundé to appoint to become minister of the West, Northwest elites.
Well, onto the 10th, he says that Ngongo has asked that all audit reports be sent to him instead of making it known to the public or to the prosecutor for prosecution. And the over 1,000 new cases of embezzlement stated by the state Supreme Audit are on pause by Ngongo because he is linked to all of these corruption cases. The 11th point that Success makes is the killing of innocent Anglophone young men and placing gun on their dead body and tag them Amba boys is initiated by Ngongo, and thousands of victims who have been sent to early graves are the handworks of Ngongo. Success Ngongo goes on to point the 12th saying all the leaks of the president's speeches prior to the official broadcast and all movements of government officials are leaked by Ferdinand Ngongo to Ambazonians or BAS. Ngongo literally organized for the members of BAS to invade President Biya's hotel in Switzerland in order to humiliate the president of the republic.
All right, Success Ngongo goes on to say that Ferdinand Ngongo's friend, the former Swiss ambassador to Cameroon, Mr. Petro Lazari, wanted Ngongo to overthrow Paul Biya by all means. All the humiliations of Mr. Biya in Switzerland was masterminded by Ferdinand Ngongo and Mr. Petro Lazari. Ferdinand Ngongo actually instructed the military to burn down Kwakwa, Abonje, Bole, Kembong, and many others, General Sally said in French language to one colonel. And he says, if they kill a soldier, I will burn the village. Now, all the massacre and the war crimes and crimes against humanity that are committed by the military in the southern Cameroons were instructed by Ferdinand Ngongo. Now, when Dion Ngote's house was burnt down prior to his appointment, him and that, are you sure your house was burnt down by Ambazonia?
Well, this means that the president himself may have doubted the official version based on other reliable informant that the president, and the only reason this house was burnt down could be to discourage the president from appointing someone like Dion, whom, according to them, wasn't able to control Indian division. And this is the reason for which Indian has suffered so much heat in 2021 and 2022, so that Dion could be disqualified and dismissed for not being able to control Indian division. All this, he says, are the games of Ungo.
All right, Success Ngongo goes on to say MKPD, Clovis, Beltus, and a handful of ex-combatants and some extremist Cameroonian civilians have been given guns and military uniforms by Ngongo, who are not afraid to display them in the public and on the socials, and are busy using these to threaten people while killing some at the same time, making boasts that they can kill anyone, and the case goes on. Now, some so-called vigilante groups in the Anglophone regions have been armed by the same Ferdinand Ngongo, and they are not militias. Now, if Ngongo can organize for Ayub Tabi to be kidnapped from Nigeria and brought to Cameroon, if he can abduct Iya without a warrant, if he can arm civilians, if he can hijack the security system of Cameroon, if he can infiltrate all sectors in Cameroon, if he can frame and arrest the doctors without borders, then there is nothing he cannot do as far as crimes are concerned. Now, this is what Success Ngongo says. He goes on to say, while the burning down of schools, it gives justification for more money to be raised by Ferdinand Ngongo with the pretext of fighting Ambazonians, which is a big business for Mr. Ferdinand Ngongo.
Now, all right, on to the 16th elaboration. Success Ngongo says that it is over a year now since the DDR modern centers were built in Miselele and Bafut respectively, and yet Fayengo, Francis, and Ngongo have not relocated the ex-combatants to the buildings that is said to be built for them, and at the same time, the Cameroon government is still spending hundreds of millions to pay rent in the current locations. This is another scam of the highest order. Each of these two newly built DDR centers cost 1 billion francs CFA to build, which means the both cost 2 billion francs CFA, yet engineers have evaluated that the building of those two centers cost a maximum of 600 million francs CFA. meaning over 1,400,000,000 francs CFA found its way into the pockets and Ngongo. Now, he asks, do you now understand why? He asks a question if you now understand the whole situation now playing out. Well, this is why success in Congo is highly fought by a group of faceless scammers who are fighting for pockets, why he is actually fighting for Cameroonians. This is what some reports say.
Now, it was his summary. Success in Congo says Ngongo is threatened by the truth presented to Cameroonians by him. And that is why he keeps sending his political crickets to dig into my past videos and pictures when I was still an Ambazonia, which I had long denounced and repented of. Now, he says this is to blackmail and to sabotage me, but rest assured that we shall know the truth and the truth shall set him free. Now, Ngongo is an enemy of dialogue. Success says he keeps saying that we can't dialogue with terrorists. What does he want? Who does he want to dialogue with? Does he want to dialogue with saints? Of what use is dialogue if it's not coming or if it's not among wavering parties? Success is asking.
Now, he says, while late Archbishop Desmond Tutu says, if you want peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. Ngongo is busy saying, if you want peace, you don't talk to your enemies, you talk to your friend. He ended by saying Ferdinand Ngongo is seriously suffering from chronic megalomania. And this message was approved by Success in Congo on the 15th day of January 2023.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold story, Africa's best.
And moving on, reports reaching Undaunted reviews that the La Republic du Cameroon Senate President Niant Njifenji has been covering his accomplice Senate Vice President Chief Tabe Tando accused of rape by his house help.
Well, it is no longer a secret indeed. A few weeks ago, La Republic du Cameroon Senate VP Chief Tabe Tando's house help sent a letter to the President of the Senate in order that his immunity could be lifted so that he could be prosecuted for rape.
Well, the allegation goes that his wife, who lives in the U.S. and had to travel to the UK, had a stopover, and since her flight was delayed, the house help too could not leave earlier for her own residence as she worked extremely late that night. The senatorial couple seemingly showing some empathy, offered that she spends the night because it was too late, that she could still had a couple of things to do. It was then that the couple offered to let her stay overnight.
Undaunted is told that it was during that fateful night that the vice president of the corrupt La Republic du Cameroon Senate, Tabe Tando, had sex with her without her consent, raped her. She filed a complaint that couldn't go far because of the immunity of this appointed senator. Undaunted learned the mail arrived on the table of Niat Njifenji, who buried the file and refused to transmit it to the presidency of the La Republic du Cameroon's crime syndicate. Well, this is a developing story, and Court C. Boris Bertolt, and we'll do our best to see to the end of this report.
Right, and moving on, this report says the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon's elections management body, abbreviated ELECAN, is the enemy language. French just had 2 of its buses killed within 24 hours in Bamenda local government area. Now, news reaching Undaunted says the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon ELECAN delegate for Momo County of the Northern Zone, Kai John Fay, has been lynched in his compound in Bamenda local government area, and that the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon head of the election ELECAN branch in Bakere local government area, Bui County, Northern Zone, was equally killed. Report says the Momo County colonial elections of La Republic du Cameroon boss, popularly called In Charge, John Fay, was beaten road neighborhood in Unkwem Bamenda local government area this January 19th, 2023.
Undaunted sources say a thief who was caught early Thursday morning, 19th of January 2023, breaking into a house at the neighborhood, had disclosed that John Fay was the thief. Is reported to have revealed that his boss, Kai John Fay, has been buying all the stolen items he and his gang bring to him. The thief equally revealed other deals with John Fye in relation to stolen items. The crowd is reported to have stormed his compound at New Road, pulled him out and got him well beaten until he was almost giving up the ghost and was rushed to PMI in Queen, where he was confirmed dead.
Quarter of New Road confirmed to our sources that the Colonial Republic de Cameroon Elekan Balls in Momo County has been noted for dealing with youths and other persons whose character are questionable in Bamenda local government area. His corpse was taken to the mortuary. Undaunted equally gathered that the killing of Kai John Fye this January 19th, 2023 comes after the shooting to death of the Colonial Republic de Cameroon Elekan delegate for Jakiri Eufela Gilbert on the 9th of January 18, 2023 at about 8 p.m. at Funcha Junction in Queen-Bamenda local government area. Gunmen alleged to be Amba fighters are reported to have attacked him in front of his gate at Funcha Junction as he returned home at about 8 p.m. Amba time.
Well, these deaths come barely days after the tyrant dictator, genocidal Colonial Republic de Cameroon's Biya announced the holding of the senatorial elections, which the CPDM Elekam manages in the corruption-fraught La Republique du Cameroon. As we report, no group has claimed responsibility so far. This two shot dead brings the number of people killed in Bamenda local government area now to 3 in less than 48 hours. It is worthy to note here that the colonial government of La Republique du Cameroon has called senatorial elections on March 12, 2023, and the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, Dr. Samuel Ikomi Sako, and the People's Interim Government have not made an official statement as concerns home front thwarting the activity.
However, the wave of killing and increased firepower at the home front speaks volumes and serves as a warning for the colonial masters who dares Ambazonians. Now, La Republique de Cameroon should go back to a strategy of appointing councillors and parliamentarians since the war started in Amberland and parade them as the people's representatives. After all, it is no gainsay that all they do or all the councillors, parliamentarians, and chiefs of Ambazonians extraction had long served ties with their base because of greed and taking refuge in the French Cameroons.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice, the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
The ongoing war in southern Cameroon, declared by La Republique du Cameroon, Paul Biya, has sent many innocent Ambazonians. Now, let's take you back to history on how it all started. The Anglophone conflict began in the late 2016 when La Republique du Cameroon government, colonial security forces, used lethal force to put down peaceful marches by lawyers and teachers protesting against perceived marginalization by the country's majority Francophone governments. Now, in response, more than 30 armed separatist groups formed to fight for the restoration of the statehood of an independent nation called Ambazonia, a self-declared interim government by Ambazonia also emerged and is run largely by Ambazonians living in Europe and in the United States.
Now, unable to face the might of the Ambazonian liberation fighters, the colonial La Republique du Cameroon terrorist forces will pour their frustration on the innocent population. Another Ambazonian has been brutally killed by a La Republique du Cameroon terrorist force while training at these talks, receiving that they are unable to restore basic conventions concerning the protection of civilians during the conflict.
Right now, the story, a sad one, says another strong and energetic looking Ambazonian has been brutally killed on board a car. Now, this unfortunate victim of the genocide that La Republic du Cameroon is carrying on in the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, was shot and killed as the vehicle he has inside approached a colonial La Republic du Cameroon military checkpoint. Now, Undaunted as first time is still to identify the disease nor the location of the incident.
Now, the attack on the innocent population of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia is on a surge. The colonial La Republic du Cameroon's government terrorist security forces have raided villages, burnt homes, and arbitrarily arrested and killed dozens of civilians to local and international NGOs. These attacks have displaced more than 700,000 civilians and forced another 63,800 across the border to Nigeria, according to a United Nations report of 2021.
Overall, the UN estimates 3 million of the 4 million people in southern Cameroon's Amazonians have been impacted. At least 4,000 civilians have so far been killed in the conflict, a toll that surpasses that of the country's far north region, where Boko Haram has been waging an armed campaign since 2014.
Now on to our next report of tonight. The human rights group called on Amazonians to resist abuse of their rights to the privacy of their cell phones. Now, Supreme Court rules cell phones are private property. Question, is cell phone private? Well, yes. In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court ruled that law enforcement agencies cannot randomly search your cell phone without a judge-issued search warrant. Otherwise, it violates Fourth Amendment right. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in the opinion, cell phones are not the same as wallets or pocket letters, saying more substantial privacy interests are at stake when digital data is involved. Now, Brendan Berry, a law professor at Cooley Law School, says the court was specific in its distinction. Quote, the Supreme Court took a very modern view of what a cell phone is. What's in the cell phone? It is as private as what you have in your home.
Now, the above are extracts from the U.S. as to the privacy of a cell phone. It says there are international conventions on data protection that La Republic du Cameroon ratified, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1945, the Charter of the United Nations 1945, and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights of 1981, which states, and I quote, privacy of all correspondence is invaluable. No interference may be allowed except as provided in a judicial decision. Data protection is, therefore, a right enshrined in the Constitution. Paradoxically, the colonial La Republic du Cameroon so-called forces of the law and order, who are those ensuring the respect of the law, are instead those violating the law. In Ambazonia, these dogs forcefully probe into people's phones at gunpoint. Is this not one of the numerous proofs that La Republic du Cameroon is a lawless country?
Well, the attitude of the terrorist La Republic du Cameroon's police officers in students' residential areas of Bambili and Boya is causing many, if not all, of the students to be very uncomfortable. The La Republic du Cameroon thugs forcefully ask students to unlock their phones, giving them access to peruse the phones and have contact with private and personal data. In most of the students, money has to change hands before the phones are returned to their owners. Students and other residents have to pay money to secure their phones.
Well, another act of human rights violation and exploitation has provoked human rights groups to cry foul. Now, the human rights groups, Cameroon Human Rights Commission, has taken to the streets of Boya to say enough is enough and sensitize the population that a cell phone is a private property and no colonial police officer has a right to get access to it without a warrant. Members of the commission used a public announcement system on board a vehicle to talk to the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia in Boya. They made it clear that it is against the law for a colonial police officer to demand access to a person's phone. They gave a toll-free number of 1523 for people to call anytime the colonial La Republic du Cameroon thugs want to violate their rights over their phones. Now, let's get that clip for you to see.
them to burn them because of them.
Una force na una private property. No policeman, no general, no get out and arrest warrant. They don't meet you when you walk for roads freely. They ask your ID card, show them. No police and everybody will take your ID put am for your pocket. No one no get right. Any man will violate una right. Now the office this. The office opposite bank. Opposite this Cameroon Human Rights Commission. We don't release people the way they lock them like.
All right, moving on. Reports reaching Undaunted says the Colonial La Republic de Cameroon genocidal military invaded Bui County yesterday, the 18th of January 2023. The report adds that this time the occupier has chosen to come from angles. Casualties are expected. Sky reporting from home front in Bui has made it known to Undaunted that Amba village in Nkwem local government area has been attacked by military thugs that came from multiple fronts, including Donga, Mantun County, and the West region from neighboring La Republic de Cameroon.
Now, Scan the Media adds that it is yet to know the casualties, but some of the warriors have been injured and 2 feared dead already, with more casualties expected even from the sides of the civilians. Scan the Media disclosed that Wainama in Zekwa local government area, the border village with Babesi local government area in Ngoketun County, is also heavily militarized as the enemy La Republic du Cameroon forces is littered all over in quarters and bushes waiting to devour Amazonian civilians.
Well, according to Scandal Media, more other Colonial La Republic de Cameroon military thugs have been stationed on maximum alert in Tobin Combo local government area, and we know the location they intend to attack. Scandal Media beckons on everyone to pray for Boy and do all possible to assist and support them. Undaunted note, however, with a favor that Boy remains a land of no return for the La Republic de Cameroon scouts called soldiers, a battlefront that had sent a good number of them into sending them back home.
Now on to the next report for tonight. La Republic press in pretty much a huge danger. One more journalist, Martina Zergo, abducted. According to information reaching Undaunted, the station manager of radio Amplitude FM, based in the colonial capital Yaoundé, was kidnapped yesterday around 8 p.m. by unidentified men who, when he was returning home from office, and taken to an unknown destination. And since then, his family has not heard of him. News from his neighborhood affirmed that unidentified men have been prowling around his residence for the past few days between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., and his wife equally confirmed this.
Prior to Martini Zogo's kidnapping, his wife's car was attacked and damaged twice by unknown persons. She almost lost her life 2 days into an accident. Currently, Martini's last 2 phones are in the hands of his captors. Another weapon in the hands of tyrannical dictatorial government is most of journalists. The press must mobilize more than ever. Journalist Parfait Siki, taken a few months back, is still under custody.
Now, many, especially English-speaking journalists, are missing, some under detention without trial, some on the run following the onslaught of the Amazonian War of Independence that has been raging on now for 7 years and that has claimed over 40,000 lives, razed over 500 homes and villages, forced millions into exile. Martinez Zergo, because of his incisive and critical radio show programs, Amplitude has been a thorn in the flesh of the corrupt dictatorial Yaoundé junta.
Now, in January 2020, he was locked up in the famous Kondengen prison before being released. He is most often than not at loggerheads with the Yaoundé government, especially ministers, including the director of the civil cabinet at the presidency of La Republique du Cameroon, Vondo Ayolo, who, according to journalist narrative, arbitrarily sent him back to Kondengen prison in April 2022.
All right, on the foreign scene, what could be the consequence of the Joe Biden classified document incident? Well, Joe Biden has gotten himself into hot water after leaving classified documents from his time as vice president in his house. Over the course of the past 3 months, Biden's team have voluntarily submitted 3 batches of classified materials to the National Archives and the Department of Justice. But this information was not disclosed during the run-up to the midterm election. The Attorney General Mary Garland, a special counsel, former U.S. Attorney Robert Hur, to look into the matter.
The find is similar to the documents found by a police raid on Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort back in August, which was attacked for its carelessness by Democrat Donna Bagon, a Nebraska Republican, told ABC's this week. It just reminds me of that old adage, if you glass house, you don't throw stones. And I think that Biden was caught throwing stones. A difference between and Trump situations are that Trump's actively try to prevent the government from having the documents back, while Biden returned them without being asked. However, with the first batch found a month before the election when they were not declared publicly, will leave a bad taste in mouth.
Now, under the espionage, any unauthorized retention, mishandling, or transmission of documents violates the law. This act, first introduced in 1917, is so wide in its scope that if a case is brought, it more than likely ends in conviction. Though neither Trump nor Biden could be classed as whistleblowers by holding onto these documents, people leaking state secrets that have shown the scale of global surveillance or war crimes, such as Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, have previously been arrested under the Act's remit.
Now, the real scandal isn't that Biden had classified documents coming out of his socks, because sadly, they have all been doing it. Scandal is that the DOJ found out about it a week prior to the midterm elections and chose to suppress the story, conferring a partisan advantage. All right, and right after the break, we'll bring you the editorial, and that had something for us. But just before then, we have something for World Economic Forum annual meeting, and I'm sure that you will definitely find this extremely interesting as well.
All right, on very critical report on the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. While India takes the signs and pavilions seriously this year, dominating the main streets in Davos with emissaries from India, taking over 8 storefronts with appeals to the elites gathering political and business class. Elon Musk, on the other hand, believes that World Economic Forum is increasingly becoming an unelected world government that the people never asked for and don't want.
Well, the tweet came in response to a clip showing the World Economic Forum's founder and chairman, Klaus Schwab, discussing how the WEF's new global collaboration village in the metaverse trusted at a time when worldwide trust in political institutions is at all-time low. Well, Schwab could be trusted because Interpol, an international organization that coordinates police response to crime, is involved in that. To this, Musk replied, World Economic Forum is increasingly becoming an unelected world government that the people never asked for and don't want.
Now, the annual event in the Swiss Sky resort town of Davos draws heads of state, business executives, cultural trendsetters, and representatives from international organizations to the Lux mountain town. Though it's always unclear how much concrete actions will emerge, the meeting is slated to take on pressing global issues from climate change and economic uncertainty to geopolitical instability and public health.
Well, observers say hundreds of public sessions are planned, but the 4-day conference is also known for secretive backroom meetings and deal-making by business leaders. So really, what is the significance of global economic meetings such as these to the world at large? The end of this meeting will tell. We will do our best to keep updated. And coming up right after the break, well, we have the chapter 3 of The Way Forward. It's not backwards. It's an editorial started early this week. Now, Steph Smart will give us this part of their summary of their editorial.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Tonight, the very final part of our editorial series, Way Forward. is not backward. Holy Water Day by Dikintasang Wilfred. We give you the reason Yawunde Street continue to work amongst us, as was the last part we left out on Tuesday. The reason why Yawunde streaks continue to work amongst us is because we have carried the same Yawunde away from on our bags, in our bags, wallets, pockets, and in our hearts. To defeat this system, each and every leader within the struggle must abhor anything that comes from Yawunde with a passion. We must shun lies with a passion, hate their money with deep hatred for you. You cannot use the devil's son or weapon to fight him. We all must deny power to be able to use it effectively when it is conferred on us. Otherwise, it becomes a snare. Ego must be humiliated and destroyed amongst us. Only when this is done shall we be able to see our brothers' merit above our own. The separation from La Republic du Cameroon must first be operated in our hearts. If it is not, the same evil we are escaping will pursue us to the precipice. When next that highly placed person within the system gets to you, ask yourself, what is he still doing in the enemy's house? Put whatever good proposal he brings under the microscope of morality and examine it forward and backward. Ask yourself and answer the following questions. Whose interest is primed in that proposal? Yours or the people's? When you are sincerely done answering the question, then whatever decision you make will also determine whether it is yourself you have loved all along or it is the people you stood up for. If we will see the enemy through his tricks and tactics, then Yawunde is defeated. We will always be miles ahead of her, being able to detect and discern her from afar. Shall we continue to play into the hands of the enemy? Money or the inappropriate use thereof, as Dikintasang said in one of his earlier episodes, is haunting us a lot. Yawunde's corruption is legendary. She has stopped the world in his domain several times. Corruption is a virtue in the land of our oppressors, and its practice is so normal that a comedian once described it as a favorite sport. Un passe-temps favori. This is one of the habits we must throw off our backs in a hurry. Unfortunately, Yawunde and the enemy are using it against us. From the very inception of the struggle, money and corruption came to the fore. Even when Yawunde had not succeeded to bribe the leaders, it put out word to that effect. Driven by fear of treachery, the social media powered by Barretta and Tapang at the time came screaming, compromised. It was only by God's special grace and protection that we were not lynched by our own people. God caused them to believe in us so that not even the Ndawara by some of the leaders dealt a blow. The quoted former Prime Minister Peter Mafani Musonge telling a CPDM meeting in Kumba that they should not follow that Tasang Wilfred because, quote, we bribed him. Corruption certainly has not remained on lips only. Have not many sold their hands? More importantly, is not the enemy using it to good effect? It is only but normal that we should cry wolf when the evil we are supposed to be running away from catches up with us on the way. What is terribly wrong, though, is when people who have kept very dark financial files are the first to cry wolf, and even do more terrible when people who are indexed and who should lead the way in transparency refuse to collaborate. Is this not Yawunde's clinging to our back very stubbornly like a leech? The call is for all Ambazonians, and particularly the leaders, reject the Yawunde inside themselves first. We should not even secretly carry some of her vices to Boya. These are needless weights that are clogging us and slowing us down. Remember to run to the opposite direction when Yawunde says come. Also remember to see Yawunde in that friend or brother who pumps up your ego, and you alone are the panacea, no matter how he seems to be committed to the struggle. Tell yourself that you are dispensable, for we all are dispensable. And with that, we've come to the end of our editorial for tonight, and also the end of the series of Chapter 3, Understanding the anticipated book, Way Forward is Not Backward, Holy Water Day by Dikintasang Wilfred. If you find this very insightful and want more of such articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member and a part of this winning strategy. Find our payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber TV.
And in sports, Arsenal have launched an investigation into two disturbing incidents of anti-Semitism during their North London derby win against rival Tottenham on Sunday. The government said one Arsenal supporter reported another for making grossly offensive comments. Well, Gab Ellison will tell us.
Latest world sports. Football. Arsenal investigating two incidents of anti-Semitism in North London derby. Arsenal has launched an investigation into two disturbing incidents of anti-Semitism during their North London derby win against rivals Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday. The Gunners say one Arsenal supporter reported another for making grossly offensive comments. Meanwhile, anti-Semitic chants were also alleged to have been heard at a pub in Islington. Any kind of discriminatory abuse is not welcome at our club, Arsenal said. The Premier League league added, "We have been made aware of two disturbing incidents over the weekend involving anti-Semitism, which are now under investigation. There was an incident at the North London derby on Sunday involving Arsenal supporters, in which one of our fans overheard grossly offensive anti-Semitic statements made by another Arsenal fan. On the same afternoon, we were appalled to hear of an incident at a Cali pub in Islington involving other anti-Semitic chants. We recognize the impact this behavior has on our many Jewish supporters and others and condemn the use of language of this nature, which has no place in our game or society." Arsenal said that anyone identified would receive a lengthy club ban and their details would be passed to the police to commence legal proceedings. The Gunners won the game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 2-0 to move 8 points clear at the top of the Premier League. The game was also marred by an incident involving Aaron Ramsdale after the Arsenal goalkeeper was attacked by a supporter. Tennis. Australian Open 2023 results. Casper Ruud knocked out by Jenson Brooksby in upset. Casper Ruud was stunned by hard-hitting American Jenson Brooksby to leave the Australian Open draw without its top two men seeds after 2 rounds. The Norwegian second seed, last year's French and US Open runner-up, was chasing a first Grand Slam title and a chance to become world number 1, but the 24-year-old was outplayed number 39 in a 6-3, 7-5, 6-7, 4-7, 6-2 defeat in the second round. His exit follows injured top seed Rafael Nadal's loss on Wednesday. Brooksby, 22, took early control of the match with 2 breaks of serve in the opening set, and he commanded play from the baseline in the second. Ruud saved 3 match points in the third before winning a tie-break to force another set, but Brooksby regrouped to break early in the fourth, sealing the win when his opponent set a backhand long. Casper's a warrior. I knew it would be a great battle out there. I was pretty confident with my level and just wanted to have fun out there and see what could happen, Brooksby said in his on-court interview. I was really proud of my mental resolve out there after the third set battle didn't go my way to turn it around. Brooksby will face Tommy Paul in the next round after his 30th seed Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in 5 sets. The men's draw was already without last year's Wimbledon runner-up Nick Kyrgios, who withdrew before the tournament through injury, leaving Novak Djokovic as the overwhelming favorite for a record-extending 10th men's title. Rafael Nadal out for 6 to 8 weeks after Australian Open. Spain's Rafael Nadal is expected to lie for 6 to 8 weeks with a hip injury hampering him doing his exit from the Australian Open. The 22-time Grand Slam champion struggled to move in a 6-4, 6-4, 7-5 defeat by American Mackenzie McDonald in the second round on Wednesday. Nadal, 36, had an MRI scan on his left hip in Melbourne and it showed a tear in his left psoas muscle. The world number 2 will return to Spain to begin physiotherapy treatment. Top seed Nadal said he was mentally destroyed after his title defense in Melbourne came to an end. The scan showed a grade 2 injury in the psoas of the left leg. Nadal tweeted on Thursday, "Now it is time to have rest and anti-inflammatory physiotherapy. The normal recovery time is 6 to 8 weeks. The time frame means Nadal could be fit to play the first Masters tournament of the 2023 season at Indian Wells in March. The European clay court season starts the following month and culminates in early June at the French Open, where Nadal hopes to win a record-extending 15th title." Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, Amba News.
And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's give you the recap of our major stories.
Tonight, we gave you success in Congo, extensive reaction to Ferdinand Ngongo, and La Republic Senate President Niat Njufendi covering Senate Vice President Chief Tabe Tando. And also bad times for La Republic du Cameroon's elections management body in Ambazonia. Also, we brought to you that another innocent Ambazonian dies from the bullet of La Republic du Cameroon terrorist military.
Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that human rights group had called on Ambazonians to resist abuse of their rights to cell phones by La Republic du Cameroon terrorist military. Colonial La Republic du Cameroon occupier military invaded Bui County, the land of no return once again. And in sports, we told you that Arsenal investigating 2 incidents of anti-Semitism in the North London Derby. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news on Toy Story. On behalf of my co-anchor, Steph Smart here, and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in. I am Onyi Okbala.
And we'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.